Welcome to Humanology On Air. Today we are talking about one of the issues keeping marketing teams awake at night, and that is measurement. Marketers today are expected to prove ROI, justify every dollar, and make decisions fast, and that can feel overwhelming in today's current landscape. Privacy issues are tightening, data is becoming more and more fragmented, third-party cookies are vanishing, and AI is changing the game faster than teams can adapt. So, how do we make sense of all of this? The answer is media mix modeling powered by AI. Joining me today to dive into this conversation is Travis MacDougall, the Senior Director of Performance Media at Jan Kelly, and Sam Rowe, the founder and CEO of Docma, a leading provider of next-gen marketing intelligence. Thank you both for being here. Let's dive right in. So let's kick off with the big picture. Travis, why is AI-powered MMM such a critical topic right now?
Well, we're seeing massive pressure right now for marketing to really connect to business needs, and the old ways of tracking, last click attribution and cookie-based tracking, they're really falling apart. They're really antiquated at this point. So marketers don't need more data at this point. They actually need clarity on the data that they're getting. So MMM is a way to help bridge the gap with all of these loss in data signals that we're seeing and really be able to provide that clarity to connect performance back to the platforms and all of the marketing plans that we're running.
Travis, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think marketing executives today have a lot more pressure on them to deliver on and deliver confidently on return on ad spend. So media mix modeling allows them to do that, shifting away from some of the metrics that you referenced and into more relationship modeling, understanding how those metrics relate to sales, and then being able to not only just quantify those metrics, but actually able to predict future outcomes. So that's a massive breakthrough for executives and why media mix modeling is going to be so important in the future.
So let's take a second to go a little bit deeper on the barriers that are being faced. What is making modern measurement so complex right now?
I think the way we have to look at it, there's probably 5 key things that are really causing issues with measurement today. So cookie deprecation, we know Chrome has put a pause on their cookie deprecation, but Apple and iOS devices already are allowing users to not be tracked online. So roughly 40% of all internet traffic these days already isn't tracked with third-party cookies. So that's not going away. If anything, it's probably going to even increase as time goes on. We're also looking at siloed data across teams. So think of all the different ad platforms, tools, and MarTech that you might have. All of these live in their own platforms. So where are you seeing sort of this unified view of all your data? Low quality or inconsistent data. Sam could probably speak to this, just the amount of clients that we've worked with where the data that's coming in, the old saying garbage in, garbage out. It's a similar sort of premise when you're working with an MMM tool. So having low quality data is really going to impact what you're doing and what you're able to get on the outcomes of these tools that you're leveraging. Attribution models, outdated attribution models such as last click that we talked about. This is something that was sort of the gold standard maybe a decade ago, and things have changed very rapidly since then. And I'd say finding lack of in-house skills. So, this is where you'd work with a partner like Sam and Docma to, help bring that expertise in-house. And the reality is, data scientists are the ones doing and using these tools. So not having that expertise in-house is definitely a big challenge for a lot of companies these days. They just don't, haven't seen the need for it or maybe understand the benefit of having, an in-house data science team, sorry.
I like how you were talking, Travis, about data and being at the core of these models and making sure that there's a keen focus on what you're aggregating and curating before it goes into the model. You're right, we are faced with some data loss issues, and all the more reason why we need to be acutely focused on what data that we're collecting and feeding these models, because they're informing important decisions like where we're putting our money. So with that being said, I think that a really good way to approach a media mix model is to start with purpose, gather around with your teammates and talk about what data you have available, not just what's available, what kind of data you're optimizing within platform and what matters at the media activation level, and then finding a way to bring that data into the media mix model to ensure that whatever insights you're getting out of your model, you're actually able to optimize back in platform in the marketplace. I think that a lot of marketers that are jumping into these projects for the first time and just throwing data into the model are not necessarily activating on the insights the best they can, because they're not thinking about the second step, which is tying it back to the marketplace. So they're getting great results. They're getting ROAS, they're getting sales volume insights, but then they don't know what to do with them. So it does start with purpose. It does start with quality data and ensuring that you have the right building blocks in place to set you up for future success.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing that you've called out, because it recognizes that the challenges are not just a tech issue or a skills issue, it's also a challenge with developing a good strategy as well. So it's interesting we're talking about preparation and how to get ready for MMM. Travis, what's your perspective on how we are kind of starting to get our clients ready for this?
Well, Sam actually brought up a really good point in the last segment where, talking about, understanding what all your data is and how you're bringing it together. So we actually like to think of it more of data orchestration than anything. So don't just collect data for the sake of collecting it, but also data orchestration not only means collecting the data, that's important, but making sure it's flowing and funneling into the right areas. So ideally, you'd want to have a centralized source of truth where you have all this data coming into a centralized data warehouse. So that way all the teams understand what is being collected, what is valuable, to ensure that, data integrity is there, you're having the clean data that you can use to help with building these models, making sure that the outputs are meaningful for what the results of the business is actually looking to drive. And ultimately, this is meant to help move you away from, antiquated, last click attribution to more holistic attribution. So, Sam would be able to obviously speak much more to this, but, when you're looking at these MMM tools and the outputs that they have, really understanding the value that some of these, upper funnel or offline tactics can drive in terms of revenue. And, I think over the last 10 years, we've really gotten so focused on, well, what is measurable? What can I attribute it back to, a click in an ad? And, there's so much more going on within the media landscape these days. The traditional funnel as we know it, Google even talked about it at Google Marketing Live recently, that the traditional funnel is gone. And if you're sort of eliminating or making decisions on your business based on, well, what is actually driving a last click sale or a last click lead for your business, you're really missing quite a large portion of the picture of what's happening with your consumer and what's driving results for your business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we see this all the time. A lot of our clients come to us and say that we're looking for new opportunities to grow our business, and that their performance marketing is tapped out, so they want to reconsider awareness marketing, but they don't know where to start. Obviously, media mix modeling can be of an assistance there, but kind of back to the data point and a centralized data strategy, I think it's super critical to have one. And as we were kind of talking about even just centralizing your data, it's what kind of data are you putting in there? I think something that the industry's been struggling with for a very long time is deduplicated reach and frequency. Obviously, reach and frequency being the core pillars of how we measure exposure. And something that we're working at Docma right now is providing a tagging solution that we're calling omnichannel resolution tags that allows advertisers to get deduplicated reach and frequency across all channels. Now, the reason why this is super critical when measuring awareness is because like I'd mentioned, reach and frequency is at the core of exposure. So we can leverage this data to correctly model upper funnel tactics. But two is really, it's quite helpful to be able to best understand attribution allocation across different channels when we understand the overlap of exposure between different channels. If we're just modeling impressions or clicks or conversions, then we are looking at relationships within the data, and those relationships can help us directionally understand return on investment. But by improving that data feed and understanding the deduplication of and overlap of these channels, we can better understand the relationship between sales and individual channels, improving our confidence and precision with return on ad spend and sales attribution.
Sam, I'm going to pause for 1 second. You mentioned something really interesting. It was omni-channel resolution tags. It sounds super interesting. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what that is?
Absolutely. Yeah, so omnichannel resolution tagging is a tracking innovation that we're currently working on that allows advertisers to measure the overlap of reach and frequency between different channels. Now, currently, this doesn't exist in the marketplace outside of the programmatic ecosystem. So this is a major breakthrough. And the reason why it's valuable in the media mix modeling world is because media mix modeling uses the relationship between impressions and sales to determine ROAS value. Now, this is great directionally, and advertisers are using this effectively. But if they want to take it to the next level and get more precise and more confident with their metrics, then using deduplicated reach and frequency can help allocation by channel. Right? It takes a little bit of the guesswork out of the model and helps the model make better sense of where the majority of attribution is, the majority of exposure is coming from. So it's quite valuable in that sense. Also, it helps with evolving your media mix model to greater insights like frequency, optimal frequency. So if you're just modeling on impressions, it's very difficult to get to that level of optimal frequency by channel. But with ORTs at the core of your model, it really does open up a great deal of opportunity for advertisers in the future. So so it's an exciting innovation, and we'll keep you posted on the progress of that.
So why don't we start to ground this a little bit in the real world? Sam, I'm sure you have some really great examples of what this looks like in action.
Definitely, Terri. Every client is a little bit different. So I like to start with the unified principles of real world application, which is really striking the balance between efficiencies and volume. Advertisers today, especially performance marketers, are constantly chasing efficiencies, and efficiencies are great things to chase. However, sometimes they're limiting when we're looking to grow our business and break through amongst our competitive peers. So an example I can share with you would be a client of ours that had a great performance marketing program. Month-over-month reports looked really good. Sales was telling a slightly different story. So they were leveraging the media mix model to identify new investment opportunities. Now, even in the media mix model, the performance marketing, by no surprise, was the most efficient on the plan, but it wasn't driving volume. So we looked to some of the upper funnel tactics that may have not been as efficient, but had more volume generating opportunity. Shifting some of the dollars out of performance marketing and into these channels actually generated 8% year-over-year growth within that respective quarter, and opened up a new opportunity to drive actually greater efficiencies within the performance marketing program, because as new clientele was entering the business, their bottom funnel algorithm was actually identifying new opportunities and getting even more efficient. So, these things are all connected, and it's all the more reason to ensure that you have a good scope and lens on the full media mix and not just your lower funnel performance marketing tactics.
Yes, Sam, actually, I love that example because it really reminds me of another project we did with a client where, they were facing some similar issues. So again, the model that they had built was really great. It was strong, but, they noticed that every time they were putting more and more money into their performance channels, they were seeing their efficiencies erode. So a little bit different than what you were talking about, where they were seeing still greater and greater efficiencies. We actually were starting to see efficiencies erode. And one of the big caveats there, and what was happening was the model forgot to take into account what the upper limits of those performance channels would be. So anyone that's familiar with paid search will understand you have a metric called search impression share. Well, guess what? Once you've maxed out your search impression share, there's no other people searching for those keywords. So you can put all the money you want into paid search, but the reality is there's no more people searching for it, right? So I think another great example of working with, an agency or a measurement partner is being able to tell when you're actually hitting these upper thresholds, why you need to put these limits within these platforms. So that way, what they're saying you could do from an efficiency perspective or from a performance perspective, it's not leading you down a road that is actually incorrect because you've actually hit your maximum capacity within a specific channel or performance media partner.
A lot of those opportunities can come from audience expansions as well too. So by identifying those, what you're calling as, I guess, these eroding points or diminishing returns can really be opportunities in disguise. You can look to your agencies for advice on how to expand audiences, to reach new people, to continue to sustain efficiencies instead of seeing or witnessing loss of efficiency. So it's a good point to make, and all the more reason why you should have a finger on the pulse of your entire media mix, because a lot of these upper funnel channels can do just that. They can bring new clientele or new customer opportunity into the business and maintain performance marketing, initiatives.
All right, gentlemen, this is the part of the episode where we jump into some of the most common questions that we hear from marketers on this topic. And Sam, I'm going to start with you. What do you feel is the absolute first step that people need to take when it comes to unifying their data?
The first step. Well, I would say the first step has to be purpose. You have to have an understanding of why you're doing this. And from there, you can start to build a strategy on how you're going to achieve that purpose. So really, I'm hinting at data. The media mix modeling, whether you're doing it internally, whether you're leveraging a third-party service, however you're going about it, ultimately really starts with data, as we discussed earlier. So ensuring that you maybe line up 3 to 5 business questions that you want to have answered through this practice, staying consistent with these business questions, knowing that they're going to be at the root of your practice, and then lining up a data strategy to be able to successfully achieve answering those questions is the best way to get started. So I would recommend to anybody looking to get started with media mix modeling, get together with your team members and really determine what it is that you're trying to get out of this.
Travis, I know you have a lot of experience with different MMMs. How do you tell a good one from a bad one?
I think that's a bit of a loaded question because, again, I don't think if there's a good or a bad one per se. I guess when you're thinking about the results and what was forecasted, I think it's a good measure of success. Sam will mention, there's always going to be some guardrails with these tools, right? You'll have your upper limits and your lower limits. So I think expecting, the exact outcome from the model that you're going to get with your media planning, you can't base that and make it be the decision on what makes it a good or a bad MMM. I think you have to see, is it kind of within the projected forecast, the upper and lower limits? If it was maybe on the lower limits of it, were there any macroeconomic factors that were at play? Did you have maybe Black Friday or is there Amazon Prime Day that could have come in? These tools are, really great at using your data to predict outcomes, but it can't anticipate the larger auction dynamics or the larger competitors that are going to be at play within the field. So again, I think, it's a test and learn sort of approach, right? Where, you have to be running these on an ongoing basis to see it's like, okay, well, this was our assumptions based on this model or this plan. And okay, well, where did we land with sort of in that upper and lower limit? And then you make adjustments every time, right? So again, it's not a one and done. I think, one of the big mistakes we've seen clients make is, okay, hey, I paid this amount to build a MMM tool. They did it. They tried the outcome. Oh, you know what? This doesn't work for me or doesn't know my business properly. And I think that's really the wrong approach. But I think that's what makes a bad MMM is actually just doing it once and not iterating on it because it's a continuous learning curve and there's always going to be different factors that you have to account for in any quarter or annual plan that you're trying to do with this.
And all the more reason why the more data that you have, the better. We talked about quality a lot, and the quality is obviously a critical factor in a good MMM, but having quantity matters as well too. And when I refer to quantity, I'm talking about temporal cadence. You want a long enough period of time that any of those anomalies are going to get smoothed out over time. And that's not to be said that anomalies won't happen in the future. Like you had mentioned, could be macroeconomic or socioeconomic factors that affect businesses. I know a lot of our models were shook by the tariffs, and our forecasts were overestimating. And as a client or as an advertiser, it's important to just understand that these are to get the best value out of these models. You want to use them directionally. Help guide your investment making decisions. Setting up goals for forecasts and trying to achieve those are very important, but not necessarily holding them to such high mechanical precision that you're grossly disappointed if you don't hit your goals, or you get too excited if you you overperform. So it's important to remain calm, not get too high on the highs or too low on the lows, and ensure the consistency of your practice to get the most out of this approach.
Sam, you mentioned temporal cadence. I'm assuming you're talking about some kind of timeline, right?
Absolutely. So when we work with our clients on this, one of the first questions we get from them is how much data do we need to feed this machine in? So general best practice in the industry is about 3 years worth of historical data. In some instances, we would require more, and in other instances, we can deal with less. It really is situational, but if you're out there and you're trying to think about how to get started with one of these projects, 3 years worth of historical media data and sales data is a great spot to start.
So what do we do in situations where a marketing team is a little bit smaller, they have limited, data science resources? What happens then?
So I think in a situation like that, you would definitely want to work with a third-party partner, someone like Docma or some of the other partners that are out there. I think what's important, though, even if you do have a smaller team, having someone internally that is focused on your data governance is going to be important because, again, if you're working with an external party, there's only so much they're going to be able to do outside of your organization. And if that person internally is the conduit between the agencies, or maybe you're running the media internally, you're going to still have to have control over sort of the quality of the data, what's being collected, and how you're bringing the resources together. Because, again, there's only so much a third-party team can do. I think they can obviously help with a lot of the data science aspect of it. But in terms of data orchestration internally, what are you collecting? What are you aligning to in terms of goals? That is still going to have to come internally. And even if it's someone where they're, maybe not a data scientist, you can still have someone that's responsible for data governance and data hygiene internally to be able to help work with a third-party partner.
So, Sam, for new clients that you're onboarding, I'm sure they have a question about how long is it going to take to start seeing results and kind of getting into it. What's typically a general timeline?
Yeah, so advertisers are obviously very eager to understand and their marketing effectiveness and start making decisions. So generally, a media mix model takes about 4 to 6 weeks to stand up. And then from there, once the model's running, general updates are about 1 to 2 weeks. Now, this can vary greatly depending on the degree of consulting that you're getting from a media mix provider. If you're just getting dashboard results, then you could expect anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. But if you're looking for that extra consulting factor, which is very valuable, especially to new media mix model users or advertisers that just understand and trust the insight from a subject matter expert, you're looking maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, given time for analysis and preparation of results. So yeah, it can really vary from client to client, but I would say generally 4 to 6 weeks to stand up and 1 to 3 weeks for updates.
Sam, we've talked a little bit about how MMMs leverage, AI machine learning. What do you see as the kind of future evolution and next step of that?
Yeah, I mean, just riffing off of what I was just talking about, I think, when we're talking about speed of delivery, getting those results quickly can give advertisers a competitive edge. So machine learning has already significantly enhanced the speed by which we're receiving results from MMMs. I think where AI plays a role is in the consulting and the future of consulting in the space. So I had mentioned that if you want consulting, you might have to wait an extra couple weeks to get a proper presentation and with robust analysis, but the computer can comprehend and compute results much faster than human beings. So the ability for the computer to provide consulting and help us as advertisers make decisions faster is, I really believe, where we're going to start seeing the future of MMM heading.
If you are ready to stop guessing and start making decisions with confidence, now is the time to act. Visit jankelly.com to connect with our team or be introduced to Docma's game-changing solutions. And if what we discussed today has sparked your curiosity, feel free to check out other episodes of Humanology On Air, where we discuss things such as AI in performance media, strategic reporting, and platform-specific creative. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time.